Well, thank you, Alan. Can you all hear me pretty well? Good. Wow, what an amazing privilege to be here. I'm a big fan of New England. I lived in Vermont many years ago in 1977. I did my externship from the Culinary Institute of America. I enrolled in 76, Ludlow, Vermont in 77, 78 graduated first in my class. So I'm presently the chef, owner of 2 restaurants in Las Vegas, but most importantly is the RM Seafood restaurant. A sustainable seafood restaurant in the middle of a town that doesn't belong there in the first place. Smart. I found it as an opportunity to make a bigger and bolder statement, or I'm crazy, it's probably a combination of the two. It's an interesting place to be. And yes, I've been somehow thrust into the position of being a chef advocate, activist, call it what you want. I was part of Give Swordfish a Break years ago. I grew up in New York City. I was born in Minnesota, lived in Lansing, Michigan, grew up in Flushing, Queens. And we were a Catholic family. My mother was very religious, and she made sure that we ate fish every Friday or we're going to go to hell. So our menu would consist of swordfish, following Friday would be salmon, and the following Friday would be fish sticks. 7 kids, both parents working, that's pretty much what you would get. And my benchmark for salmon, my palate, my understanding, my appreciation of salmon was farm-raised Atlantic salmon, because at that point in my life, the wild Atlantic salmon population had been collapsed. I didn't know anything about that until later on in my life, but we had destroyed it, their environment and their ability to reproduce and stay healthy and proliferate and continue to feed us and themselves in the environment in which they live. I learned that later in life. So, boy, that was a great association with an amazing fish. All right, fast forward, graduate culinary school, get into the business, and then I went through La Côte Basque, great French restaurant, with the saucier there, boom. Went down to Key West, Florida to get out of New York and see what else there is in the world. So I got to associate myself with the ocean. Scuba diving, skin diving, I would bring up fresh conch, lobster, poke them with a hanger till they came out of their hole and you'd catch them in the net. It was awesome stuff. And I was fortunate enough to have mentors in my culinary lifetime where they connected me with the notion of having respect and appreciation for and celebration of amazing products that come from our environment. The connection of chef as the liaison. At this point, the chef was just a chef. There was no celebrity. Now we're a celebrity. Yay. What I see celebrity as is an opportunity to stand in front of people and actually have them listen to you, because the television's so boring. Oh, God. Finally, oh, chef, oh, good, I like cooking. Everybody likes cooking now. So for some reason, the profession that I chose, not for the reason of becoming popular or a celebrity, became popular. And so I got to speak about what I was fortunate enough to be exposed to in my formative years in culinary school, etc. And that was to change my life in many different ways, because I was pretty outspoken. And I like to color outside the lines a little bit, That's what creativity is. The best things that ever happen in our lives come from people that are considered kind of crazy, or on drugs or something, It's like, that's what changes the world, Think about it. Blues, one of the greatest music, types of all time. People that have lost their lives or lost their girlfriends, they're about the world's about this, and the greatest music about, this is what brings us as human beings together. And what better than food brings us together? Nothing. Every day we're thinking, what's for dinner? What's for lunch? So I am the luckiest guy in the world that I get to stand before you here at the Maine Gulf of Maine Research Institute and talk about the future of food. So my benchmark was farm-raised Atlantic salmon. I go into the food service industry. I go to the Fulton Fish Market. I'm in New York City. I'm in charge of this gigantic restaurant called the Water Club. Does $12 million a year. I'm going to the Fulton Fish Market at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm using that opportunity to really give it to the new externs that come to work for me. Ha ha, meet me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm bringing you somewhere. And make them eat raw oysters at 4 o'clock in the morning and watch them, you know, to connect them. You know, so that whole experience allowed me to be exposed to the changes that would happen before my eyes. And swordfish was a very popular fish at the time. And you'd watch these 300-pound fish being hauled in, dragged, and thrown up on a table and cut into gigantic wheels and sold. And I'd buy big pieces of it. And as time would go on, those fish shrunk down to 200 pounders, called double markers. And then 100 pounders, markers. And then below 100 pounders, called pups. Pups, called pups because they're not sexually mature yet. They can't even reproduce. And that's what you see on the market. You can't even find a marker or a double marker anymore. Wow, that's weird. So I get a phone call after I got involved with genetically engineered foods. It's just, and it's going to take up too much time to catch up to speed on how that happened. I get a call from Nora Pouillon. Nora Pouillon runs a fully organic restaurant in Washington, D.C. We were on the same panels talking and fighting against genetically engineered foods. We just thought it was nasty. You know, it's not pre-market safety tested. It's being shoved down our throats. It's not even mandatorily labeled. You know, we don't even know we're serving it to our customers, and customers trust us. You eat what I make. My craft, you put in your mouth. That's pretty personal. And there's a trust between you and me that you trust that I'm giving you something that's safe. You hope it's delicious. It's my job. Be creative about it. But there's a bond, you know. And the government is saying, "That's cool. Let's go. We want to be ahead. We want to go to the moon first. We want to be genetically engineered. Go." Asshole. That's what's going on in my head. I'm reading this and going, "This is not good." I share it with my chef friends. They go, "This is crazy." Yeah. Crazy. So I start the Chef Coalition for the Pure Food Campaign. DC, big activist, Jeremy Rifkin, this crazy Eddie guy. It's like, you tell everybody your grassroots story as a chef and how they're taking away your ability to connect it to your customers. And I'll talk about the horrible parts and the crazy Frankenfish that they're coming out with and all the Frankenfoods that they're creating. Calgene tomatoes are terrible. Got flounder genes in them. People could be allergic to that. And you can have lawsuits. Okay. So I go in front of a bunch of media. We have a press conference at the Water Club where I'm the chef. And they're like, the media comes up. What are you doing? Chefs aren't outspoken. Chefs are quiet guys in the back of the kitchen cooking food. Well, there's this big changes going on here. And I was one of the radicals that started the whole thing. So I'm like, my school's afraid of me. Everybody's afraid of me. Oh, my God, you're talking against big companies like Monsanto. They give us money for the school that you went to. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't like what they're doing. So I just stood my ground, and I became alienated. You stand in the back. You talk too much. You're making too much problems. There's a lot of politics that we got to deal with, son. Pat me on the head, stick me in the back. Well, I'm standing in front of you today talking. I wasn't wrong then, and I'm not wrong now. So this is kind of like a perspective of me sharing with you just some ideas of a chef that's been kind of like focused on sustainability, our connection with the ecosystem, our destruction of the ecosystem because we think we can control it and monetize it, turn it into a business. We could take Mother Nature and we could turn it into a business. What a great idea. Not. It's about appreciating it, studying it, emulating it, figuring how to nurture it so it can continue to feed a growing population of 7 billion to 9 billion within the next couple of generations. Wow. How are we going to do that? We already got 1 million people that have got starvation or food security issues with not enough food, and another 1 million that are just obese and getting heavier and heavier, and diabetes and everything that's growing is because our bodies today don't even recognize what we're consuming as food. Doesn't. It's over-processed. We've been fed and delivered by big companies, big campaigns, a load of what they wanted us to believe. And the Generation Z and the millennials are being dumped a sick planet in their lap. And guess what? Sustainability is the only answer to the future. It's it. If you're in a business and you're considering sustainability, I highly recommend you get up to speed because that's the only way. The next generations, people are going to be spending the money. They're sick and tired of it, and well, they should be. They're being dealt a nasty-ass situation. So, that being said, go for Maine. Okay, let's get to the happy parts. stuff, all right? We know that, so back in the day, salmon was like the best thing in the world. I was part of the Certified Quality Bay of Fundy certification program. I was their poster child, Rick Moonen. Come on up. We're gonna create this certification program where we set ourselves apart as the best. And I learned everything about the Bay of Fundy, and this is like in the early 90s. 90s. I was at Oceana, and I get thrown. I'm at Jail Island. I'm visiting all these sites in the Gulf of Maine on up into into Canadian waters, etc. I'm in love. Wow, the salmon is the greatest thing since sliced white bread. It's affordable. Chile was making sure that it was affordable. They were flooding the market. I didn't care about that. I was getting cheap fish, affordable fish, inexpensive. I was selling it at a good profit. I had a good food cost. My customers loved it, and there was a million ways you could cook it. You could broil it, saute it, grill it, roast it, fry it. Excellent fish. Best thing ever. Filled with omega-3s. That time, nobody really, the omega-3 thing wasn't like a big flag, but I knew it's brain food. It was always brain food, and that's the fats. Your brain needs fat in order to be healthy. So, yay. So I get involved with Give Swordfish a Break. I get involved with Caviar mTOR. I get involved with Take a Pass on Chilean sea bass. And then all of a sudden they tell me, farmed in dangerous. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Now you're stepping over the line. You're taking the #1 selling item in my restaurant, and you're telling me I can't serve it? Go to hell. I tell them, stick it where the sun don't shine. I'm out of here. I'm not supporting this stuff anymore. So then I get invited up to Vancouver to the 3rd World Congress Fisheries, discussion. And while I'm in there, they go, Chef, we want to take you on an airplane and take you somewhere. Oh, cool airplane. Are you kidding me? So let's do it. Put on the things, go fly in a seaplane, land in the Broughton Archipelagos in Echo Bay. Meet a lady named Alexander Morton. Anyway, I can talk for hours, so you're gonna tell me when I'm not shut the hell up. Anyway, Alexander Morton takes me into a Atlantic salmon farm-raised Atlantic salmon in the Pacific Ocean, so it's non-indigenous species, open water, open net pens out there, and so I'm like, yeah, it's fun. I'm still loving salmon, So she says, okay, well, this is where we still are capable of buying wild salmon. Still, we've got Chinook, we've got chum, we got pink, we have all these beautiful salmon that still hit the market when they're in season. And so we go up there. And so we stick a net in the water, and you can see right there, salmon farm. You can't get any closer because they're looking at you. They're looking at the boats when you're protecting yourself. There's those environmentalists. So you didn't get too close to them, but we got close enough where there's a migration going on. Little net, pull them up, a bunch of pink salmon, stick them in an aquarium, and I look inside the aquarium. And I got a picture of me. Somebody took a snapshot of it. I'm like, I got this disgusted look on my face. Why? These little tiny fish, without scale coating on them yet, with sea lice attached to them. Not natural. Sea lice are natural. That happens, it occurs. Sea lice, natural. But there's this wave of how things happen. Lice are not at their peak. They're not super, super concentrated when fish are immature and they're migrating, normally. Some fish should be taken out. That's natural selection, and some would be taken out, but not every single pink salmon. I'm talking 50 pink salmon that I could put my hand in and pick them up because they're lethargic, dead, or dying because of lice. And I'm like, holy shit, they're right. And all the other stuff is probably right. Escapes, all the other things I kind of ignored, but come on, please, I don't want blah, 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 I don't want to hear it, These fish, they escape by the millions, and they compete for the food that the fish in the area need to compete to feed themselves. The indigenous species that belong there in the first place. Now these fish are going in and they're eating the food up that they need. So now you're going to create an imbalance in the ecosystem. I look at the ecosystem as the engine of your car, and you pull over one time just out of the blue, pop your hood and yank out a piece and throw it to the ground, expect it to run the same. That's crazy. But yet we don't even get the least bit upset that cod collapsed. We don't care that the sardines in Monterey Bay have been overfished. Something else. Nature will fix it. No, it's not. We're screwing with nature. Can't do that. Can't pull a piece out of your motor of your car, and you can't allow a piece of the ecosystem to go away because of what we did. And that's why I made a commitment to myself. Right then, right there, I'm taking farm-raised Atlantic salmon off the menu. Wrong. And there's effluent, the byproduct, concentration. Nature doesn't expect that many fish to live in this part of the world. Fish can live anywhere they want. They choose where they want. They can swim anywhere they want. They pick the most perfect conditions. And the Bay of Fundy is perfect. It's got the highest tides in the world, cold water, Atlantic Ocean, full of food, wonderful. But they didn't want to have such a high concentration because that creates stress. So these fish are under duress. And they're creating a lot more byproduct than that environment's capable of withstanding, creating a sludgy thing called effluent. And in order to protect your investment, and you got to understand, aquaculture is pretty darn new. Happened in my lifetime. So guys are making investments. It's smart. They see the future. Aquaculture is important. Agreed. So they're going to rush in. They're going to make major investments. Okay. So now I'm an investor mentally. So I'm here and we're at the table and I say, hey, boss, we got a problem. What's the problem? The lice. What's that mean? These things sticking all over the place. All right, well, what do we got to fix it? Well, they got this stuff called slice. It's nicely technical, gets rid of the pesticide. Well, get some and get rid of the damn things. What's next? They're not doing it because they're nasty, ugly, bad people. They're doing it because they're protecting a smart, futuristic endeavor. They're investing in something that's going to be necessary, and it is. Over 50% of what the globe eats today out of the ocean comes from farms. And there's a lot of good, and there's a lot that could be fixed, and there's some people that are doing a much better job. Fast forward, 10 years, no salmon on the menu. So a couple of years ago, I get approached. Now I got this mentality in my head, like 7 billion, 9 billion. We need big solutions. I mean, I could easily go, oh no. No, it's the mom and pop farms and the small little producers that are doing it right that are going to save the world. Bullshit. No, they're not. How are they going to feed 9 billion people? It's the big companies that are going to do it or have to do it. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do. So I hear about this company called Cook Aquaculture, the biggest producer of farm-raised Atlantic salmon in North America. And they've made a lot of changes. They made a lot of investments. They've listened to Seafood Watch. They're sick and tired of being in the red, saying avoid, avoid, avoid. But they avoid our product. Our product's good. So they start looking at nature and saying, let's find some solutions here. And then, they start to bring in people to do some research on it. Something called IMTA. Anybody know what that is? Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture. And what they did that was vastly different than trying to strong-arm nature into what they needed it to be, using antibiotics and pesticides. They said, you know what? How's nature do it? Well, nature does it by integration of different levels of the food chain, different trophic species. So they take salmon farm that produces a lot of byproduct, and that byproduct, which is toxic to the natural environment, is filled with nutrients. It's dead fish, uneaten, pellets of food, and species, all of which are delicious. That's organic, delicious food. But nothing's eating it, and that's when it becomes toxic. Whoo! Why don't we plant some seaweed next to it, or mussels next to it? Mussels love that stuff. Pac-Man. So the mussels right next to the salmon, next to the mussels, some kelp. Now everybody's working in conjunction with each other. The environment's clean, and we got great mussels, we got great salmon, we got kelp, and seaweed you'll see more of in the future, because it's going to be part of the solution to food insecurity. Brilliant! Well done, well played. Cook Aquaculture, love you to death. So that's good, but I've been this big mouth for my whole career, 25 years or more, saying, no bad, no bad, no bad. You guys are really screwing this stuff up. So now I'm going to step up and go, hey, by the way, salmon's good again. They're going to look at me like I'm crazy. So it takes me a full year of making sure the integrity of this company is sound, that they're not just hoodwinking me. I'm looking at it as an opportunity for me to be the Trojan chef. Sneak in inside of a little salmon outfit, maybe.
get into the middle of this big monster that's the biggest producer of farm-raised Atlantic salmon in North America, sit at the table, and all of a sudden become a voice. Hey, you know, guys, I got an idea. Maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do that. And I accomplished that. But not until I met Glenn Cook, the owner, and talked to him so that I could feel, look eye to eye. Say, you know what? You're not just saying this, right? You're really doing this. Right? Yeah, we're doing this. We've invested, and here's how we've come up with solutions for every little thing that you're concerned about. And I'm looking at it going, yeah, that's fairly good. And you know what? You guys are like 92.3% there, which is more than anybody else that I know. I want to support you, because in making a noise and saying you guys are doing it right, all the other guys are going to go, what? They're doing it? Then we should do it too. And they all do it. And then I've won. Then we've changed things. We put a new direction to sustainability. And that's what happened. I became the brand ambassador for True North Salmon, and those that were on the team of Everything's Bad turned on me. Oh, Moonen, sell out. You know, bad person, bad. And it's recently Monterey Bay Aquarium, after long discussions with scientists and the counters and the data keepers, and well, we don't have sufficient data to make a decision. And they have to keep doing it, even though you can see with your own eyes it's a great idea. That's common sense. Common sense and science don't always mingle. And I love science. I mean, science and math is what got me involved in cooking in the first place. They have taken the Gulf of Maine aquaculture system, and they've acknowledged finally that it's not something to avoid, but it's a good alternative. No one's really celebrating it loud enough as far as I'm concerned. I want to be like, yeah, screaming at the top of my lungs. See, doubters, haters, this is the right thing to do. What am I, a visionary? No, I'm just paying attention, you know, and I'm with a great company. You know, Gulf of Maine, why is the Gulf of Maine moving from the red to, well, what finally pushed it over the edge was they were ISA free since 2006. ISA is this nasty disease that just kills salmon. You know, it almost wiped out Chile at one point. They rebuilt, and now they've got other issues right now. Actually, it's another story. But we're talking about Maine tonight, and they also were concerned about the escapes and what it's going to do to be a detriment to the whatever's left of the wild Atlantic salmon. There's still Atlantic salmon, but they're just not viable for business. They are what they call commercially extinct. In other words, it's not worth the gas in your boat to go after them. Besides, it's illegal. Yeah, so it's also, you're going to throw them in jail. So that's kind of like a deterrent. So those were the two deciding factors. There's still some chemical, but you know what? We're 98% there now. So I'm like thrilled. You know, and Canada's close behind. Bay of Fundy is awesome. I mean, it speaks of its unique environment, etc. But what do we do? Okay, that's my salmon story. Yay. You know, but you know, it's DNA traceable. You know, it's certified by the best aquaculture practices at the highest level. They give away stars. So it's 4 stars. Most stars that the best aquaculture practice gives out. Bing, you got gold stars. You got, you know, your 4-star generals here. The American Heart Association certifies, you know, the salmon is heart healthy. It's traceable. It's native stocks. It's Atlantic salmon grown in the Atlantic Ocean. No problems there. You know, so all well and good. Now, just for discussion and not argument, but I'm like thrilled because we've come such a long way. And I've given you my story of why I decided to become a brand ambassador and to have these discussions. And boy, oh boy, is this, how many people, you know, consumers, do you think are going to listen to this entire story about sea lice, effluent, escapes? Oh, I didn't even talk about the fact that they're carnivores, so you have to get fish to feed them. Sometimes it takes 5 pounds of marine protein to create 1 pound of farm protein. Not a good ratio. Eventually, we're going to run out of marine protein, and other fish need that marine protein too to live, right? So we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. Well, those ratios have been readjusted, worked out. You know, non-GMO feeds are being always worked on and honed down. You know, antibiotic use and chemical use and pesticide use greatly diminished. New systems of removing sea lice. Sea lice don't happen every year, but they do happen. And there's going to be an outbreak on year whatever. And there's different ways of dealing with it. It doesn't necessarily got to dump a bunch of chemical on them in order to get rid of them. There's well boats that are used where they take the fish and they just run them through a boat that's filled with a light solution of hydrogen peroxide, and it takes them off and they go back and everybody's happy like they took a shower. Nice. All right, so there are solutions. Now, let's talk about the ecosystem. I mean, what's the biggest concern, I guess, for the Gulf of Maine? And I'm not an expert on this, but I just like to have these discussions. And we can have a Q&A when I'm done with the rant. Global warming, not a heck of a lot that we can do about global warming, I don't think. I mean, we have to deal with that. Acidification, well, that's because we screwed up the ocean. Any pollution that's, we talk about methylmercury and PVCs and everything that ends up in our fish. Well, how do you think it got there in the first place? Idiots. Coal burning plants, dumping, using the ocean as the garbage can, expecting perfect food to come out of it because it's big. Come on. And also, just building of our communities and letting the chemicals run into the water. I mean, that's just the easiest place to dump all your, spent oil out of your car. Just dump it there, nobody knows. Put it in the sewer. What do you think you got? So we're in a different place. We're smart about what we're doing, and that's really all we can do about that. What we can do is support things like integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. It's easy to remember. Just sing the YMCA song. It's IMTA, right? So now you know. And I learned that from Terry Chopin, who's the genius behind the research that's moving IMTA along. And I visited a farm in West Virginia, of all places, closed containment system. They grow tilapia, and they did a really good job. And then they decided, we're going to grow shrimp as well. So they're going to take the byproduct of tilapia, poop, and feed it to shrimp. Shrimp eat that. Shrimp or cockroach. That's what they eat, the byproduct, all that stuff. So you may or may not love shrimp after tonight. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to ruin it. But that's what they eat. So the byproduct of tilapia raises shrimp. Shrimp raise something called cobia. Really, 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 really delicious fish. Not so easy to farm raise, but cobia eat the shrimp. Cobia has a really rich a byproduct in their effluent that can create aquaculture, grow vegetation, and that vegetation feeds the tilapia. They're vegetarian, or they're omnivores, but they can survive on just vegetation. So maybe you can see the system. It's closed now. Agriculture feeding tilapia, tilapia feeding shrimp, shrimp feeding cobia, cobia feeding agriculture, agriculture. It's like perpetual motion. That's sexy. That's the future. So aquaculture, IMTA, that's what we should be focusing on, because we can't change global warming. We can't really change the acidification. We can make it better, but it's going to take a long, 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 long time. So we support, we celebrate, we talk to the media. We say, why haven't I read about Monterey Bay Aquarium going from red to yellow, from this to this? We should be screaming it. We should be celebrating it so loud it's Mardi Gras in Maine. And that's what I suggest should be happening here, because I'm celebrating it. I'm loving it. I love New England. I love the Gulf of Maine. I want to see Canada acknowledged as well, so the entire Bay of Fundy is acknowledged and recognized. I want every other company to be so jealous that you guys are doing such a great job, so we got to do it too. Ooh, boo-hoo, that's the greatest thing in the world. That's a win-win-win-win for everybody, for our environment, for our future. So that's the world according to Rick Moonen. And thank you for listening to my rant, and I want to take questions.